Shell Bluff Landing, it has multiple components to it. It has a 6,000-year-old shell midden, so there's, midden is basically a big trash pile, so it has environmental data, it has information about the people, what they were eating, the tools they were using, and what resources they had. In the late 1700s, there was a Menorcan man named Juan Andrew, and he had a Spanish land grant in the area, and he had a big plantation, and the Spanish documents tell us he had, all sorts of structures and a kitchen and a house and things. But the only thing left at the site from that time period is a coquina well that was built around 1800. So the thickest part of the shell midden and the part where the well is actually the worst eroding area that we see. It's right along the Intracoastal Waterway, and it gets hit by boat wake action and waves and all sorts of things. So yeah, we find, of course, a lot of different shell, because at the core of the site is the 6,000-year-old shell midden. We found some pretty exciting stone tools. We knew we had stone tools at the site, but we haven't actually found that many, so to find a few more is pretty exciting. And these are some of the oldest artifacts that we would have at the site. We've also found different types of pottery that were made by the native group. So we have a St. John's check stamp that was made by the Timucua, as well as something from kind of the later colonial period called San Marcos. And this is a type that we find also in Spanish households, because they were having to get pottery shipped in. They actually end up turning to the natives to supply them with a lot of kind of utilitarian wares. We find all sorts of different types of historic ceramic from the different time period, from the earliest Spanish made majalicas to later pearl wares and annular wares. And then of course we find a lot of glass as well. Before we have things like plastics, a lot of things came in glass, everything from beverages, cosmetics, medicines, all these type of things were packaged in glass bottles, so we find tons of evidence of that as well. Overall, the long-term management strategy for that site is abandonment in place. We could try to shore up the shoreline more, but once again, that's really just going to be a temporary fix, and even the attempts that have been made in the past have already, failed quite a bit. We could relocate the well, and that's something that the folks at the GTM Research Reserve have talked about quite extensively. And trying to figure out the logistics and the funding for that has been, the major hurdles for that. And so the well, you could kind of disassemble and move. And Flagler College did that with a similar well at Pollard Hall. So there are some great examples of ways to make that work. As far as the shell midden goes, the best thing you could do is to excavate to get the data from the site. But once again, that's a lot of resources, time and money, and also for now, just kind of monitoring is the biggest strategy with that site. And as I mentioned, we found stone tools and shells and different things that we didn't know were there before. So even though we're losing this site, we're also gaining information just by going out there and checking on it. GTM Research Reserve has done a lot with living shoreline restoration and trying to deal with some of these issues at other sites, but the wave action at Shell Bluff Landing is just so intense that, trying to get oysters to live there, doing things like that, it's really not feasible. I think it's great that we're having the Keeping History Above Water in town, because it's really bringing to light a lot of the efforts that we have in Florida. We have over 8,000 miles of coastline, and we sit at sea level rise, so we definitely, if we're not figuring out what we're going to do as a state, I don't know what other states are going to do, because we have so much more to lose. So the conference, I think, is going to be great, because we have a venue to talk about some of the research that we're doing at places like Shell Bluff Landing, and really highlight the work and confer with our colleagues from other places and see what they can teach us and see what we can teach them, and kind of share ideas.